But he writes, the weaponization of my addiction by partisan and craven factions represents a real threat to those who are desperate to get sober, but are afraid of what may await them if they do. He writes, it is already a nearly impossible decision for addicts to get sober, and the avalanche of negativity and assault of my personal privacy may only make it harder for those considering it. Instead of being vilified for his addiction, he says his recovery should be celebrated. Well, statistics do back up some of his concerns here. Of the 15 million Americans with alcohol use disorder, just 6.5% got treatment in 2017. It's gone up slightly since then, but only slightly. And of the more than 20 million Americans with substance use disorder, just a little over 10% got help. Look, Hunter Biden has been charged with crimes. He is in court where a judge or jury will eventually decide his guilt or innocence. And Congress is investigating how he earned his money and whether he broke any laws doing so. All that will be decided. But his op-ed today raises interesting questions about how we talk about addiction in America and whether how we talk about it actually fuels suffering and death, because so many are afraid to raise their hand and say, I need help. Joining us now for more on all of this is Michael Cole, founder of Lauren's Wish, which he started after losing his daughter Lauren to fentanyl poisoning, and addiction medicine specialist, Dr. James Besante. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here. Michael, I'm so sorry to meet you under these circumstances. You lost your daughter Lauren to fentanyl poisoning. And I want to read in something that was written about her. She was incredible, first of all. She was like a competitive athlete, a competitive cheerleader, a great student. You write, she was embarrassed and fought this disease alone for 2 years while maintaining good grades, excelling in sports, taking college courses. She kept the secret from her family, her teachers, her coaches, and her friends. She did. She felt the stigma.
She absolutely felt the stigma. It was the embarrassment overall, and people not understanding and the name calling and labeling, kept her from being vocal about it.
How long did she suffer in silence before she finally came to you and said, "You've got to help me, please"?
Almost 3 years. She came to us her first semester of college, actually, right before finals. And, my wife and I had no idea that there was a problem at all. And she said, guys, I need help. Here's what's been going on, and I can't stop.
Doctor, this is exactly what we're talking about when we talk about this stigma keeping people from getting help, because a lot of people, there's an assumption here that when somebody's suffering with drug or alcohol addiction. But the reality is most of people who suffer from that alcohol or drug addiction, I did, keep it a good secret. Nobody else knows about it. So it's so important that when you feel like you need help, that you feel like you can ask somebody without being shamed or blamed for it.
Yeah, no, it's a great point you're making. And first, thank you for having me on the show. And I just want to acknowledge the strength it takes the other guests to talk about his daughter's story. And I really just want to create a space where I'm very thankful for the work he's doing. My patients face so many barriers in accessing care. You mentioned stigma. Stigma happens on so many levels. First, there's social stigma. There's negative stereotypes, discrimination, fear of judgment that discourage individuals from seeking help, that causes them to have self-blame. There's also healthcare system stigma. And that's that there's limited access to care, inadequate training for providers, and discrimination at the practice level that hinders effective treatment. And then the final layer of stigma that I think about is really at the policy and legal level, that we've criminalized addiction, we have stigmatizing language infused throughout our laws, and we have limited funding for addiction treatment that perpetuate these societal misconceptions and reduce support for those in need.
Yeah. And doctor, just very quickly, do you agree with what Hunter Biden is saying in this op-ed? I mean, put aside your own, everybody should put aside your personal feelings for Hunter Biden. What he does say here, though, is important, which is that when you constantly mock somebody and call them a crackhead when they're years into recovery, 4 years into recovery now, I guess, and make that as such and try and shame somebody so publicly, that's sending a message to people that, oh, I do not want to speak up and say, I'm like him, the guy who's being made fun of on, Fox News every night.
Well, when I read the op-ed, I actually wasn't thinking about the son of a famous political family. I was thinking about the story I hear from so many patients that find their way into my office. It's a very similar story of feeling ashamed, of having their addiction weaponized against them. There were many common threads there that I hear from so many people that enter my office that prevent them from accessing care. You know, you mentioned that 1 in 10 individuals with a substance use disorder on average are seeking care in a given calendar year. So the folks that end up in my office, that's just the tip of the iceberg. 90% of people who would benefit from changing their relationship with a substance are not seeking care. And so when I read that article, I heard many, many common themes that I've heard throughout my career.
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.